Hey folks, my name's Chris Wessel. Today we're going to be tying a fly pattern called the Miramichi Special. This is a streamer pattern that's typically used in the spring for spent or black salmon coming back down the river. So without further ado, let's get on into it. Today for our Miramichi Special, we're going to be tying on the D8A hook by Partridge, and this is the Paul LeBlanc edition hook. So it's a big one, but it's a fairly quick tie. There's not a whole lot to the body. We're actually just going to go ahead and put our underbody on right off the bat. And on top of this underbody is just going to be mylar. There's no ribbing or anything. So we'll bring this back to our hook point. Right about there, and we'll come back again. All right. We're going to come on with some black UTC 70 thread now, and we're just going to use that to tie this off. Where's my scissors? Okay. Just cutting off the excess stuff here. This is such a nice looking pattern. I really love the colors in it. I don't have a whole lot of these Paul LeBlanc hooks left, so if I'm using it, it means it's a pretty cool pattern. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to lay down some head cement on this underbody, and that's just to help keep the mylar on and in place, especially after a bite from a fish. And I am just looking for my mylar now. Here we go. And it's going to be silver body on this. So I use number 14 mylar mostly for everything, no matter what size the hook, just because I find it's a really manageable size in mylar. When you start getting into bigger or thicker mylar, it tends to have little parts on it that will fold up on the shank, and it just looks terrible. It's been my experience anyway. So I'm just spinning out those twists every now and then, and that happens when you're using a bobbin, but it still, even with having to do that, it still saves a lot of time. Okay, now we just come back up. And I don't care too much about the spacing on this top part, especially if I lay down a really good run on the way to the back of the hook. If there's a few spaces and stuff there, I'll take a little bit more time with it, but that seemed to go down pretty good. Alright, so let's cut this stuff off. And looks pretty decent on your side. Alright, so our first material we're going to use is our throat, and we're going to go with a white on that. If you guys haven't seen this new bucktail from Shore Fishing, oh my god, is it good. If you get a chance and you like using bucktail, give this a shot. I don't think you'll be disappointed. It's the first bucktail I've ever owned that doesn't actually smell like a deer's rear end. So I just hand stacked those fibers just to get it somewhat stacked. And what I'm going to do is, it's for a throat, so I don't need much material. I'm going to cut off some of that and I'm going to stack it the rest of the way in an actual hair stacker. So I'm just going to get that in there. It's being a little bit uncooperative. There we go. Honestly, I should have a larger stacker for when I'm doing bucktail, but I don't, so I just make do. And I can imagine a lot of us do that same thing. You just, you know, you can't have everything, so you just make do with what you have. You know, I didn't like the stacking job on that very much, so I'm just going to redo it. Sorry, guys. But the throat is the one thing that I like having kind of very neat and tidy. That we'll have to do. So I want to come down, and I'm probably going to bring this right to about there on the hook, I think. It's a long hook, so you want to have a pretty big throat for it. Oh my goodness. All right. All right, that looks pretty good to me. So now we're going to start working on our wing. And the wing on this consists of 3 layers. So we're going to have to try a different technique today for getting those layers to stay on top of each other. I'm going to show you what I do with that. It's pretty effective. It's not too hard to do once somebody tells you how to do it. I had a heck of a time until I had help from a buddy in Quebec. Actually, he showed me how to do that. Alright, so I'm just going to hand stack this. So what I'm going to do is, and you guys are going to have a hard time seeing it, but I'm going to take my thread and I'm going to spin that around. And you want to get that line real twisted up, because now when I come in over top, I can come in with that loose thread and it basically wraps around the hair, and now I just bring my thread over. So that's going to hold that thread in a clump on top of the hook instead of pulling the hair down around the hook. And we're going to try to do that for every layer now. Admittedly, this doesn't always work so smoothly for me, so now I'm kind of worried about how the next couple are going to go. Our next color is going to be yellow. And again, we're going to just give that a little bit of a hand stack, which means you're just pulling layers of the fibers apart and kind of lining them up in your hands. Alright, I think I know where I need to be here. And we're going to do the same thing as we did with the first clump of fur, which is give that bobbin a little bit of a spin, get some nice twists into it, and it causes the thread to want to fold back on itself, as you could see what it just did there. And you're basically, really I got a little bit too much out, but you're basically trying to get it to kind of fold back over that deer and under it, the bucktail, which comes from a deer, so I'm not wrong. And then come down and over. If we weren't doing this, that color separation would stop here and everything would just be mixed in together back here. So that's why we're doing it. So far, so good. So the next and last layer calls for a brown. Unfortunately today the closest thing to a brown bucktail I have is a tanned. I had a brown bucktail that fell victim to a pest infestation, and luckily I only lost a couple bucktails out of that, but the only brown I had was one of those. So we're going to use a tan, and it still looks actually really nice on this pattern. But just for your own information, I guess, it doesn't call for this color. It calls for a brown. That wasn't a good clump. This is really crinkly. This is not shore bucktail. I'm just trying to pick out some here now. And I'm going to hand stack again. Oh, this stuff is not good. I feel like this is going to throw my whole fly off using this, but that's it. That's all I got. Okay, so for our last one, we give that thread a spin again, and we pray. No. We'll make it work. Wow, nice. All right. So that actually didn't go too bad, except for the flaring in that wing, which I'm not happy about. Hoping a few thread wraps may bring that down just a little bit, and it will. Oh, perfect. How's it look on your guys' side? Great. All right, so I'm just going to trim this up a little bit. Now we got to add in some jungle cock eyes. I have these faux jungle cock eyes. I don't actually have a cape of jungle cock because really I just don't use it enough. So I always have a few packs of these laying around, and I don't feel like they look as good as jungle cock, but they get you out of a bad situation, I guess. Now we're going to run into issues on this head, and I can tell already with wrapping this up and getting full coverage on our wraps. But we're going to do our best here to try to make that happen. The head's pretty bulky though. And one of the layers fell over. Oh no. Oh, that's the worst. Well, we're here now. So I knew it was going a little bit too perfectly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put quite a bit of crazy glue on the cut end of this. And hopefully that will help hold everything in place. And we're going to try to fill this in without bulking up that head way too much, which is always a tricky thing to do. I don't tie a ton of streamers either, so I'm sure if I had a lot more of these under my belt, it would go a bit smoother. And keep in mind too, if you just have a couple pieces of color showing through, you could always go over that with a marker or even just use black head cement. That peacock eye is set back a little bit too far, but that's all right. So that is the Miramichi Special. Great little pattern in the spring of the year. And yeah, we could have done a better job on that wing, so my apologies, folks. Just gonna put on some head cement now. There we go. Thank you all for popping by and having a watch. I really appreciate it. Thank you all that subscribed to the channel so far. I also really appreciate that a lot. If you haven't, please consider doing so, and if not, that's cool too. Until next time, stay safe.